fun. And if you want more of Bobby, and I know you do, make sure you tune into our episode of the Black Wine Guy Experience. Peace. Hey, everybody. What's up? It's your boy MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is the award-winning Master Sommelier, co-founder of Frasca Food and Wine Group, Pizzeria Locale, and Scarpetta Wine Company, and a leader in the hospitality industry, Bobby Stuckey. In 2000, Bobby worked with world-renowned chef Thomas Keller at the French Laundry in California and led the restaurant's team to earn the James Beard Foundation's Outstanding Wine Service Award. In that same year, San Francisco Magazine recognized Bobby as Wine Director of the Year. Bobby went on to open a number of award-winning restaurants of his own, including Frasca, which received the 2019 James Beard Award in Outstanding Service. And Bobby is a co-founder of the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which launched in March of 2020 to give a voice to privately owned, non-chain restaurants. Welcome, Bobby.
MJ, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody about the wine we're drinking this afternoon.
Sure. It wasn't weather permitting since it's like sleeting and snowing outside, and I brought this delicious white wine from Friuli Venezia Giulia, but it's still delicious. This is Ronco de Nemetz Chardonnay Sol. So this is old vine Chardonnay planted in the Colle Orientale in Friuli, run by this, we're a day after International Women's Day. So I'm a day late, but this is from Serena Palazzola. She's the matriarch. She's a dear friend of mine. She's like a big sister to me. Her husband, Christian Patat, and her 3 incredible sons run this winery and love it. And they're dear friends, not just of mine, but they've become friends of the whole Frasca team and many of our guests. And it's been great for me and Lachlan to really watch her boys grow up, and now they're stepping into it. It's great.
Well, I didn't know what it was. I figured it was going to be Italian. It was from Friuli. But when I smelled it, I was like, wow, it gets thrown around, but it's very Burgundian. They're making a really serious Chardonnay there.
Dude, it's serious. You're so right. I mean, it's like, I actually used, not this bottling, but a different bottling, the 2014 Ronco Basso. They have a couple different sites of Chardonnay. In a seminar in Aspen a few years ago, and it was blind to a bunch of the American sommeliers, and many people thought it was great white Burgundy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really detailed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so again, thank you so much for being here. We connected through Instagram. I don't know what, you started following me for some reason when I had like 900 followers. You were one of them. And you were always very generous. If I slipped into your DM, you answer questions. You are just really generous, and you live and breathe hospitality, as far as I can tell. So we're just glad we got this time and we can sit down with you. So we like to start at the beginning. So are you from Colorado originally, or where are you from originally?
No, I'm originally from Arizona. I first moved to Colorado in the mid-'90s to go work at the Little Nell Hotel in Aspen. Mm-hmm. I was there until 2000, and then I left the Little Nell to go work for Thomas and Laura at the French Laundry, Thomas Keller and Laura Cunningham. My wife and I moved out there and worked there. And then while we were out there, it was kind of I could have either done 2 things. I could have either spent the rest of my career with Thomas and Laura, which would have been great. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were really wonderful to me, great leaders. Or I could have gone and done my own restaurant. And I knew I wanted to do my own restaurant. And that would seem like the right moment because they were just about to open Per Se and Bouchon Vegas. And I thought if I was going to leave Thomas and Laura, this would be the time to do it before that launched off. So, and at the same time, Danette's mom passed away, and her dad was living in Colorado. And we just thought, if we're going to open a restaurant, let's go back to Colorado so we can be close to Dick, her dad, Richard Alberico, and the rest is history. Lachlan came with us, and it's been a fun ride.
Well, cool. Let's go back. What was it like growing up in Arizona? Because I know you're a runner. Did you run in high school and stuff like that out in Arizona?
Yeah, I was an interesting. My parents are amazing, and they're really some of my inspiration in life. Both of them, for different reasons. My mom for her incredible tenacity, and my dad for his incredible positivity. And I was a really, how do I say this? Well, I'm dyslexic and ADD, and I struggled as a kid a lot in academia, and pretty much two things I think saved my life. One was running, and two was bussing tables. And I found them both quite young. Running first, my parents, my dad took me to a 10K in 1976, so I was 7 years old. And he's like, this would be a good thing for him to do. And I did it. I liked it. And then my mom said, well, I'll go do those with you. And then my dad's like, I'll go do them with you. And then when my brother got to be 7, because he's 2 years younger, they made him do it. And it was just like, the Partridge Family of mediocre runners, you know? Like none of us were great, but we all tried really, really hard. And then I realized as I got older, I think my dad liked it because it was an excuse that he could like crack a beer at like 8 in the morning as soon as you're done.
Right. It's kind of like carbo loading. You get bagels and beers after a 10K.
You know, my dad just loved that. I'd always be finding him like, it was great.
So, I mean, you run a lot. I mean, and I've, because I follow you and you have a wonderful Instagram, just like you really detail your life. Like you get the love for your wife, Danette. You get like your love and reverence for like long distance running. But you say mediocre. I'm looking at you. Don't look like a mediocre runner, man. So what's your like best 5K?
I don't know. My best 5K is my best marathon. You got to do I'm 52, so
yep.
Pre 40 years of age. I ran like a 2:45.
That's no joke.
New York.
That's no joke, people.
And I was like 39 years old when I did that.
Shit.
And then, ran a couple in the low 250s. Now that I'm 50, so that's kind of where I am. I mean, I try really hard. I'm not built like a runner. I'm a little bit bulkier. My brother likes to remind me of that. He's like, dude, look at me. I've got the right physique for this. I'm like, shut up. But yeah, we try. The whole family tries hard.
I love people. 2:49 that's no joke of a marathon. Under 3 hours that's legit. So that's cool. So, your family starts doing 10Ks, and you also mentioned bussing tables. But how did you get into cycling? Because you were like a domestic pro cyclist at one point, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing. I was running cross country, and matter of fact, my high school cross country coach, Coach Renowicki, came into my restaurant this summer. I hadn't seen him since 1987, and he reminded me of this story. My parents were out of town, and pretty reckless behavior on my parents' part to like leave my brother and I in high school, 2 punk rock like nutcases.
It's like a 80s movie setup.
It is. It was an 80s movie setup. I mean, I think that's where my brother got a lot of his material. And I don't know if I should say the whole detail, but my brother and I were having a great weekend, maybe too great of a weekend, and I dislocated my kneecap.
Oh.
And my parents, I think they were like in like Hong Kong. Like it's not like they could like just whip back. And I got injured, and I couldn't run cross country, and the best rehabilitation was swimming. So I did that because I wanted it to recover so I could finish the cross country season. And there was a girl on our cross country team, Katie Ewing, and she was doing triathlons, and so I was swimming, and she's like, "You should do a triathlon this spring." And I was like, "Nah," and she said, "No, you should." And so she got a couple of us in high school to do a triathlon with her, and I really liked it. And I was okay. I was pretty good at it. I really liked it, and so I wanted to run Division I in college, and I was just not quite there. I wasn't good enough, and I went to Northern Arizona University, which had and still to this day
has
a
great cross country team.
Amazing. They just won they've won 4 out of 5 national championships in the last 5 years. Yep. Back when I was going into college, it was the same era, same type of era. And I couldn't make it on their Division I team, but I could keep doing triathlons. And I lucked out and had a couple good results in triathlons. And one of the guys that I would train with, he's like, "Dude, you should try just cycling. Like you should do some of these local bike races." And you know, triathlons are expensive and they're expensive to get to and things like that. And I was a waiter in college, and so I started doing some local bike races, and I had some success with it. And I was never like a natural. I'm a little bit bigger than most cyclists. I lived in Arizona, but at altitude, so I didn't fit any of the molds. Like someone usually my size would be good at criteriums and field sprinting. I didn't have that fast twitch. I was kind of a grinder, but I went and raced the 1992 season as an amateur over in Spain. Where there was with a guy named Jeff Winkler and Michael Alvarado, and I came back after that, and I had some moderate success enough that I got a domestic pro contract with a domestic trade team called Shackley, and it was a really great experience. It was amazing, but the best part about it was for a pro cyclist, there was an older cyclist on the team. You know, this is relative. His name was Kent Bostic. He actually made the Olympic team in 1996 at the age of 41 as a full-time hydrology engineer. And he was like, I was like, oh my God, I got a pro contract. And he had won a race with me, helping him at a stage race, and we were splitting up the cash at dinner. And I was like, should I quit my job as a waiter? And he said, please do not. He goes, you love the hospitality industry so much, and I don't want to bum you out, Bobby, but yes, you have a pro contract, but being a domestic pro, this is in 1993 or whatever, you're not going to be able to retire on that. So you're so lucky that you have something you love. Stay with that. And it really, I think, Kent really helped me in that path.
That's really cool. That's so cool. As you were telling your story, I was reminded, because like I said, I used to run in high school and stuff, and used to read all the magazines. A lot of people don't realize Lance Armstrong started out as a triathlete.
Yeah, yeah. I used to race against him.
Yeah, I figured you probably did, because we're about the same age.
He's actually Scoob, my brother's age.
Okay.
Like almost to the week. He's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
So me and my brother and Lance are all within a week birthdays wise. Mm-hmm. But I'm 2 years older. But yeah, Lance was a phenom. He was amazing. He's a good friend of mine. And look, that guy, I love him. Some people don't. If you're someone whose family's been affected by cancer like my family has, he's really there for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was a great.
Yeah.
And to say something about Lance is like when he was 17 years old, he was already Lance. Maybe not winning the Tour de France, but winning big pro triathlons in high school, and he was just wired. Mm-hmm. He thought it was normal to be a 17-year-old competing against Dave Scott Tinley.
All back in the day, guys.
Yeah, he was so wired that way.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him him.
Yeah. And I tell people, because I know I have friends who Olympic trials and Olympians, I'm like, people say this thing about steroids, but you've never been at that level. You don't know what you would do to win. Yeah. So I when people just blatant like say things, I'm like, most people don't know people at that level. Yeah. And like you said, someone like that who's wired to win is going to do what it takes to win. So I still have respect for him. So whatever, if I lose a listener, that's okay.
Hey, listen, and for losing the listener that might leave for that, I mean, I think you have to look outside of someone's sport.
Yep.
And look what he's done for so many people.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah, the Live Strong. I mean, until this game, I mean that how much that helped people and where the money went. So,
I'll have a great analogy for you of him as a person. That no one knows this except for me, him, now you, and the family he did this for. We had a woman working at Pizzeria Locale. She was about to get married. Her fiance's brother and dad, going into the holidays, stage 4 cancer. Like the whole family was just torn apart. And I was telling Lance this story, and he goes, "Can you get me their names?" I said, "Yeah, of course." About an hour later, I get this video sent of Lance saying, so-and-so and so-and-so. I know it's the holidays. I know your whole family's really shook up with what's going on. And like, really like no one asked him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I just send it to them. And he goes, you bet. I sent it to the employee, and it like made their holidays. Like he wasn't putting it on social media. He was just caring about people that were suffering with cancer.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story, man. And I want to talk about staying in hospitality, because you said one of your mentors, like, you love this, stay in it. And you mentioned you started running and bussing tables around the same time. So what was your first job in Arizona in hospitality? That smile says a lot, right?
I got kicked out of Jesuit school, or as Mr. Positivity Larry the Lizard, my dad, likes to say, I got promoted to be a public school guy. You got to just love the positivity there. Your son gets kicked out of Jesuit school, and you're like, well, you got promoted to public school. My mom's like, well, you need to get a job. Well, it's quite hot in Phoenix, 120 degrees. I'm not a huge fan of the heat. And the first job I tried to get when I was like 13 years old was, if you see the orange trees in Phoenix, they have to all be painted white at the bottom.
Right.
So that was a summer job, and it was horrible. It was like 120 degrees, and I'm out there, and I'm like, this is not for me. I'm not an agricultural kid. I'm going to go get a job in a restaurant. There's air conditioning. And my mom's like, that might actually be hotter. And I went to work for this lady. She was a restaurateur and chef named Dimitra, and she had like a fine dining Greek restaurant. And for the first year and a half, I couldn't tell, because of her thick accent, if I was doing something right or wrong. I was constantly being yelled at, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. I just thought that was the world we lived in. And it was certified. It was just like early 80s. It was nuts. But then I went to work. That was my first job, but really my second job really impacted me. I went to work and I really grew up in a weird world, because I thought all entrepreneurs, like my first 3 restaurants I worked for, were all run by women. And this is in the 80s.
Wow.
And so I went to work for a lady named Carol Steele. She had 2 restaurants called C Steele, and she was way ahead of her time. This is in like 84, 85. Like, she had these restaurants with like marketplaces and little cafes and little retail shop, really cool. And she had a lady named Chrissa Robertson, who was her executive chef. So she was like all in. Incredible executive chef, this woman, Chrissa. And at the time, Chris's boyfriend, who ended up becoming her husband and then ex-husband, but her boyfriend, Tom Kaufman, ran the front of the dining room.
Okay.
And I found my people. You know, it was like, for someone who has struggled so hard in academia, like it's not like I didn't try hard. I was trying really hard to be average in school. I just loved it, and that really sent me into what I still believe, almost 40 years later, is an industry that really gets beat up by a lot of people, but it can be so great for many different people. And that was it.
Do you think the fast pace suited your personality? Because I think that's one thing a lot of people don't. They think, even in fine dining, like how much it can be hectic behind the scenes. Like, if you're doing serious service, like, you got to think fast and move fast, and the fact that you're moving, you think that really suits your personality as well?
100%.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I expedited. Someone was like a college kid was teaching me how to expedite, and he had like a breakdown on a Friday night. I mean, and this guy might have had a breakdown for other reasons,
Right.
like chemically too. Like, he definitely was living the whole 80s program. I mean,
looked at the whole 80s program,
and
which is true.
It's just it was a part of that time period. I mean, this is a guy who used an excuse to call in sick. He said that he put the wrong acne cream on his face and he had a reaction. after I saw him go out that night. I was like, that's not the wrong acne cream. That was something else. But the guy had a meltdown on the line, and this is when we had the green handwritten tickets, not POS system.
Yeah.
And I had like 26 tickets up there, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. And so MJ, you're so right. That energy was so good for me.
Yeah. I love a good expediter. People, that's like, it's just like boom, 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 you know. But that's a great story. The 80s program. Acne cream my ass.
I mean, I remember coming into work and they're like, oh yeah, he's really sick. Something happened with his acne cream. I was like, wait, come on. I mean, so now when I have young kids call in sick or use a personal day for something, I'm like, we would get busted in the 80s without social media. You really got to be careful.
I know, right?
Like, you're at the Fox Theater seeing music the night before. You did not get,
That's hilarious. So, you've said you found your people like in the front of the house, and when did wine start to come in the picture for you?
Well, that gentleman I mentioned, Tom Kaufman.
Yep.
He was really into wine. And this is, in Scottsdale, Arizona, there wasn't a scene for that then. And then about the time I went to college in Flagstaff to Northern Arizona University, he and Chrissa moved to LA. Okay. And and this was like such a big deal for our little restaurant community in Phoenix. He became the sommelier of the Hotel Bel Air. Mm-hmm. And Chrissa went to work at, I think she worked at, her first landing job was at Campanile. Nancy Silverton's restaurant. And, I stayed in touch, and like, it was like urban myth, like, a guy from Scottsdale, your old manager's now the wine director at the Hotel Bel Air. And I was just like, wow, that is awesome. And I was working as a waiter in Flagstaff. And by the time I was finishing college, a restaurant opened called Brix, B-R-I-X, like the wine sugar level. Mm-hmm. And they had a really progressive wine program. And on Wednesdays, they did wine class. And I was hook, line, and sinker. Not because I thought I was going to be a sommelier. I didn't even know that career path. So much has changed in the last 30 years.
Yep.
But what I did know is I wanted to be in the restaurant business. And so I wanted to be the best waiter I could be. I needed to be the best back waiter I could be. I knew I needed to go to the path of being a manager or a maitre d', and part of that would be wine. And if I was going to be great at hospitality for my guests, I needed to really study wine. It wasn't like I always love when people have these, like, they tell these stories like the clouds parted and these angels came down and they drank 1961 Latour and they became a sommelier. That didn't happen for me. It was not like that. It was like, wow, I want to be in this industry. This is another way to help take care of people. And I loved it.
Well, I read an article a couple years ago where Jordan Salcedo interviewed you, and I think it was like the death of the Somm, and you talk about how things have changed. But like one of the things in that article, you said like a lot of young Somms, they eschew mentorship. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because I love what you said. You want to be the best waiter, the best back waiter, like the humility, and also something you say in your post. You're like, what an honor is it for you to be bussing tables with your staff. So like, talk about some of the things you see that have changed with the rise of the Somm, and good or bad, like you've seen it as a professional. Yeah. Well, I think it just comes down to one thing. And no one wants to talk about this. And we're at a moment. Where we have societally different eras. And so the long story is, we have a societal group right now that really doesn't like mentorship. It's just a fact of life. Like, I mean, they named COVID Boomer Remover. Like, I would have never, that's crazy. When I was 26 years old, I would never have named a disease that killed my grandparents anything. Right.
So you just have to put your lights on. The restaurant, and there's scientifically, there's only a few things that you can be a prodigy in: mathematics, music, art, and I think chess. Those are the things that you can either become great through gift or hard work.
Mm-hmm.
The restaurant industry is not a prodigy industry. There is no prodigies. There's no hospitality prodigies. So once we've realized that that's the fact, it needs to be a step-by-step process. And so we just all have to say, look, it's not going to happen in 18 months. It's not going to happen in 3 months. It's going to be a long path. So let's just all settle down and buckle up for the path. And that's where our industry is met with a lot of people who think it's a prodigy industry. It's not. There's so many little things, especially as you go up, and I don't want to use the term food chain, but the different disciplines of restaurants. Because there's something great about a casual pizzeria or a casual osteria, but then there's also something very special about fine dining. And they're different disciplines and there's different nuances. And I work in all of them. Like I have 4 restaurants that are all different kind of, and I love them all. But what happens when you're doing a multi-course menu and kind of that precision doesn't happen overnight. You need so many Friday nights. You need so many Saturday nights. You need so many tough nights. You need to hit failure so you can break something open, look at it, and put it back together. And that takes time. Yeah. And we just need to be like okay with failure. We need to be okay with building a foundation. And that's there's so much great that the young generation has. They're so inquisitive. There's so many positives. So I'm not anti the younger generation. I'm actually very inspired by them. I don't plan on ever having a TikTok account, but there's so much positive.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that really hurts in our industry is that it does take time. It takes discipline, and it's a craft. And a craft, it's funny. We love the word craft. Craft cocktail, craft beer, craft coffee, but we don't want to craft ourselves. Like the craft ourselves takes decades.
That was such a great article. I mean, it set off a lot of controversy just because also you said it's like the average somm, like being a somm. First of all, and I've discussed it with other guests, some of who worked with you, but like first of all, when you see the Somm series, which is great, but you have to understand how many Michelin-starred restaurants are there in the United States that have a wine program. You know what I mean? Like we're talking like there's 38 teams in NFL. Like there's only so many jobs.
Yeah.
And how many people play professional football and maybe 3 years, I think you said like 3 years is the average NFL quarterback, right? So I love what you said about taking the time to craft yourself, and I think that the internet is a wonderful thing, but it also makes everything look like it's overnight. So people don't see, all the hard work. So getting back to, your mentor, who's now the wine director at Hotel Bel Air. So now you had a tasting group where you and your coworkers would pull tips and purchase a bottle end of each week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. So
in Flagstaff, Arizona.
In Flagstaff, yeah. So talk about that.
Well, it's there's a few of us, and I was at this restaurant, Bricks, and so Arizona, I believe it is still this way, but back then was a COD, cash on delivery state.
Okay.
So the owner, rest in peace, we lost him, Matt Bloomhart, and Robert Fusco was the wine director. He would let us, like, whatever was our study topic, we would put in 25, maybe if it was a big week, $50 each, and we'd put the order on Thursday, we'd get delivered Friday, they would use that cash, pay for it COD, and then we would get it Saturday night. And I just feel, I literally, that was 1992. That was 30 years ago. And I still love those memories so much because, look, I being my generation did have a bit of an advantage is the wine world was different then. You could, and I feel bad for, you could drink a lot of stuff throwing 25 to $50 in. I mean, that was back in the day when Chateau and Estates was still around, and they would keep inventory of Bordeaux, like at like Southern Wine and Spirits. You could just look on the inventory sheet and go, oh, we want to try whatever it would be, like a vintage of Bordeaux with some age on it.
Right.
And we could pull it off.
And you could pull it off. Like you could buy DRC back then still.
Yeah.
Like so many of these wines, everything changed that like there's somms who will never have some of these amazing wines just because they're so cost prohibitive at this point.
Literally, what the price of buying a craft cocktail at a bar,
right.
we were all able to pitch in, and it really was freaking awesome because what we'd do is we'd study that whole week on a region. So if we wanted to, like, if for $50 we could each get a Grand Cru bottle of something from the village of Polini or the village of Chassagne and go to town.
Yeah.
And it was just really awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So how did you go from working at restaurants in Arizona, Flagstaff, Bricks, to working at the Little Nell as a somm, leading the restaurant to a multitude of awards and nominations?
Well, I love Flagstaff as a town, but I needed to keep pushing and keep working on myself. And at that time, Tom Kaufman and Carissa had come back from LA, and they had opened a restaurant called Rancho Pino, which opened in 92 or 93. Had just closed this year, so they had a really long run. They divorced as a couple, but the restaurant was like, it was kind of like the Phoenix version of Chez Panisse. It was like really ingredient driven and all this. And I went down to work for them. Okay. And trying my hardest. And there just wasn't somm jobs, like in the whole state. Right. And I was working for them, and then the next summer, I asked Tom. I was kind of interviewing for some assistant somm positions, and Tom Kaufman, I said, hey, I heard there might be an assistant somm position at the Little Nell. And he's like, and there was another hotel that had just offered me an assistant somm position, and he said, slow down. You got to do the deal at the Little Nell. And this is what everyone should find a mentor that has some experience that you can bounce ideas off of, because that changed my life. If I would have done, and I'm not going to say the other hotel that I got the somm job offer at, the assistant position at, but my life would not have been as rich and as what happened. Mm-hmm. So Tom's like, I go, well, I don't know if I would be able to get that. He goes, hold on. The chef there was my chef from the Hotel Bel Air. I'm going to call right now. So here's an owner of a restaurant taking time for a young person, calls up the Little Nell, gets on the phone with George Mahaffey and says, hey, listen, I've got this young guy. He would be a great assistant. And we know you're looking for one. And literally, I'm embarrassed to say this, Tom Kaufman wrote my cover letter. He's like, I'm going to make sure you get this job. And when I got the job, he said, okay, now settle down. This is a bit of a reach for you. It's a big program, a lot of serious wine. This is what you've got to promise me. I said, whatever, Tom. He goes, you got to make sure you study every day. He goes, I want you to do whatever you can do. He goes, I want you to work 6 days a week. And I go, okay. If they let me, he goes, they'll let you. And I said, why? He goes, because every day is a repetition. If you work 6 days for the next year and a half, 2 years, you've actually put yourself almost a year ahead. If you work a 5-day work week, 5 times 50 is 250.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And he goes, you're going to get more reps. They'll have something for you to do. And I did that. And I did exactly what he told me, and it was the right moment. I was there. I also had great. I didn't know what I was getting into, but Eric Calderon, the GM of the hotel, and then there was an F&B director named Connie Thornburg, who was a force of nature. She was a single mom in food and beverage director of the Little Nell. She's now become one of the greatest hoteliers in North America. She was at the Auberge Group, and then she ran Calistoga Ranch. She's now at Ojai Valley Inn as the executive director. But they were really great to me in mentorship. So I got really coddled. If it's amazing. I think people could be coddled now if they allow mentorship. I think there's a lot of people that want to help mentor, but people just don't want it. Mm-hmm. I was just so lucky that Eric and Connie and that whole team at the Little Nell was there for you. It was awesome.
And how many years did you spend at the Little Nell?
I was there about 6 years, yeah. And then when I left to go to the French Laundry, my best friend replaced me, Richard Betts. Mm-hmm. And then they really got a promotion because Richard did a lot better job than I did. He was awesome. And he was way funnier. And
thank you. How did the French Laundry come about? Did Thomas Keller notice you? Was he in the Little Nell in town? He said, "Who's this young man?"
Yes, something like that. The Thomas took over the French Laundry in 1994 from the Schmidt family, and people think like the amount of work that guy did to get to taking over the French Laundry in 1994. He had lost his job at the Checkers Hotel. He was up in Napa. I think he was living in the guest house at Peter Michael, doing like chef pop-ups for wineries. He was trying so hard. He opened the French Laundry, and for pretty much the first 6 years, it was mostly a Napa Sonoma list. And the French Laundry was getting better and better and better each month, each year. And they wanted to kind of up the whole front of house program, and they wanted to have an all-world wine list. And that's what I did at the Little Nell. And it was just like the right timing. And it was great. I mean, it was awesome. He was really straightforward. He's like, some people are going to hate you here in Napa Valley. I was like, oh, great. I go, why? He goes, well, this is your first time working in wine country. They don't want to see, because my job was the French Laundry and also running the wine program at Bouchon. And so Bouchon was like the winemaker's watering hole. Right. And he's like, when you put that first Sancerre on by the glass and knock off a Napa SB, enjoy the experience. And he was right. He gave me some great advice. He goes, make sure you probably keep that by the glass wine at least on by the bottle, because this is, and he was right, because at that time there wasn't foreign wines to be consumed in restaurants in Napa. Mustards had a little bit, but that was it. Mm. And so it was a really exciting time, and I learned a lot, and I feel really lucky. I've been gone 18 years from the French Laundry, and Thomas Keller, still reaches out to me, or I can reach out to him or Laura, and he's like one of those guys. He's always there for you if you need something.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. It's a good point. We got to take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back with more with Bobby Stuckey. So we'll be back in a second, everybody. Okay, we're back. So you left there, you said, in about 2004. Is that correct?
I opened Frasca in 2004.
Okay. How did you meet your current business partner, Lachlan?
Well, I came around the corner, and there was this like totally kind of disheveled looking, I think he had like two different socks on. I love it. In his clogs, and he was
like the dude. I got the picture of the dude.
I mean, it was just like, but at the same time, he was working at the French Laundry, and he was friends with Nate Reddy, my assistant at the French Laundry, and they were really good friends. And I met him, and the French Laundry at that time, the kitchen people came from all over the world. So Lachlan was Canadian. that he had just moved back from Paris. Had worked at Jamin in Paris, Benoit Guichard's 2-star. And he had landed at the French Laundry. I think he was originally going to either go to Michel Bras or he was going to come to New York. And then he got the gig at the French Laundry. He came there. And he became friends with Nate Reddy. And I remember the day I met him, and we talked about cycling, we talked about wine, and he was one of the few guys in the kitchen that was very curious about wine. And he and I and Nate would, on nights off, get together. You know, we only got Thanksgiving night off. None of us were allowed to go see family. We had to work the next day on Friday. So we all went over to my house for Thanksgiving and drank some great wine, and we just became really, really good friends.
That's
and we shared a lot of the same things. I mean, he's as much of a wine guy as he is I mean, Rajat Parr calls him the collector because he's because Locke's always like kind of looking around, seeing what's open. And
I love it. Yeah. I love it. So 2004 was also the year that you got your MS diploma, correct?
Yeah.
Now, from the Somm movies, we all know it's a very difficult exam, one of the most difficult in the world. How was it for you as someone who's dyslexic? How were you able to study and pass that?
Well, you know, look, I passed service in theory twice because how that works. You know, when we talked earlier, you said we got to have failure to be able to break something open and put it back together. Well, I got to practice what I preached with the MS. I had a lot of failure. I failed. I really had text anxiety for that blind tasting. And so I had to do the service and theory twice. I passed it twice. It was really hard. And what I realized was I wasn't going to put a timeline on it. I was just going to do it for me. I never no one's ever seen me wear my pin in the dining room floor. That's not what I've ever wanted it for. It was my own journey. And my wife, Danette, I would leave the French Laundry and I would drive home, and we had this kitchen island table that was my mom's prep kitchen from her catering agency.
Oh, wow.
And
That's cool.
Danette would sit on the kitchen island, give me my Anchor Steam beer, and it'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning. I would walk around the kitchen island, and she would sit there in her pajamas, and I would drink my beer, and she would go over the notes that I had problems with that morning. So I would study an hour every day before I'd go into my long day at the French Laundry. And I wasn't trying to kill anybody or be I was just trying to do it on my own time. But Danette, a.k.a. the D-Bomb, she was so supportive. And those beers tasted great, man. Long shift, Danette sitting on the counter, you know.
Cold Anchor Steam,
yeah,
original like craft brews.
Oh, I loved it. It's awesome. I still have one every night after work.
That's so cool.
I think Danette probably should have taken the exam. She had seen so much of my notes and like every time she would blind taste me, she would taste through the wines herself. So she'd probably be the next one in the family if she wanted to.
That's really cool, man. So you talked about earlier, and going back to when you went to Colorado, you landed there because her mother had passed away and her father was living there alone. What inspired you to open your first restaurant, Frasca?
Well, you know, I was very in love with wines of northern Italy, specifically Friuli, Venezia, Giulia. Danette and I and Nate Reddy, and when we were all at the laundry and on our vacation, Nate Reddy, Danette, Lachlan, and I went to Friuli. And this was like this North Star. And we were eating at a restaurant that we still eat at, that we still stay at, called La Subida. It's right on the Slovenian border. It's run by the Cirque family. I remember the day. It was pouring rain outside. I was outside on the phone because we were trying to. I was checking in on my brother was first boy was being born, and it was about almost 20 years ago, and I went in and Laura Donna Cirque, the matriarch, she was like carving this stinco di vitello, this veal shank dish with these roasted vegetables in the panjou. She was carving it tableside for us, and I'm eating it with Lachlan. Lachlan's like, dude, this is it. This is our North Star. I swear to God, it was that dish, and I don't think. I don't know. I'll have to ask Lachlan. I bet you we've eaten there 100 times now. Mm. And I think we always, when we have new guests, because we always want to see what Sandro, the chef's, doing new.
Yep.
So we always feel bad, but we always order that vitello just so the other people at the table can see this whole mojo happen.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool, man. That's so cool. What is it about that region? I mean, you love that region. What is it about it? Is it the mountains? What makes it so special?
There's so much to add up there. First of all, I have to be MJ, I've got to be really honest. I think it was like one of the luckiest things in my life, that region. And not just for me, but for my whole company, because it's been such a beautiful North Star for us. Because if you are a restaurant that's lucky enough to be around for almost 2 decades, the restaurant industry is really tough. To have something that you can keep refreshing the team on over and over and over has been really helpful. But Friuli's this interesting spot where it would be like if the West Side Highway was the Adriatic, and 20 miles past it was the Collio and the Colle Orientale, and another 30 miles past that was Aspen, Colorado. So within 60 miles, you go from Adriatic to really incredible mountains. And so that's really special. The culture, you're really technically the southernmost spot of the Austrian Empire, or what historically was. You're the northernmost spot of what was the Italian culture, and you're the western border of what was Eastern Europe.
Okay.
All living together.
Yep.
And so that's really fascinating.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think a lot of got these friends who own a restaurant, and they were talking like a lot of like Sicily, same thing. Anytime you have a place where a lot of
cultures
collide, the food's freaking amazing.
Food's amazing. I think there's also a difference.
The culture. Because everybody had to get along.
Yeah.
Like historically, people learned how to get along. So
yeah.
So that's. I mean, I could just see that's just a special place, and everybody knows Tuscany and Piedmont,
and I love those regions.
Yeah. But like to have this restaurant you focus on. Let's talk a bit about having your restaurant. Like you've also spawned you've helped guide some people. I know Dustin Wilson considers you a mentor.
I got to run with one of my former employees today, Grant Reynolds.
Okay, nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Audrey Frick was on here. And she told the story of how when Jeb Dunico said, "Listen, you're going to New York. You're going to work at One White Street, and you're going to be the Italian wine critic." So, how did like?
By the way, Audrey, talk about work ethic. Wow,
she's a beast.
It's amazing.
We love her.
She's awesome.
Yeah. She's supersonic. How did Colorado become like this, like that whole Aspen area? How did it become like this, like little, what's the word, incubator for like so many top somms?
Well, I think a couple things. I think Jay Fletcher up in Aspen gets a lot of credit. He really mentored Richard Betts and I.
Okay. But
he also said, you got to be there for other people. You got, if other people want mentorship, you've got to. And look, it's not easy being, if you're going to invest time in someone's growth, that takes energy and all that.
Yep.
And Jay made it very clear that was really something you should do. And then I think one thing for Frasca, and not me, but the wine team does that over and over. And I don't want to take credit for it. Like Carlin Carr is the wine director. I mean, I was just seeing some emails when I was walking over here. She was like setting up mentorship programs for, I mean, she sets up mentorship programs for people who don't even work for us. You know, and so there's the Frasca kids, and it's not just Uncle Bobby. It's Jeremy Schwartz. It's Tyler Potts, who's now in the city here, but Trey and Rihanna and Ian, the whole team, they're good at giving back to the people coming up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really incredible. Shifting gears a little bit, you and Lachlan launched Scarpetta Wine in 2007. So what was the motivator? What was the force behind having your own wine?
So when you enter a Frasca, which is a neighborhood restaurant in Friuli, you might be given a Tajut, Tajut. It's like this much of like a little back then it was called Tokai. Now it's called Friulano, like aromatic white wine. And so I had this dumb idea when we opened. I said, hey, Locke, we got to be like super authentic. He's like, oh yeah, of course we are. Prosciutto San Daniele, Montalzio cheese. I was like, dude, we got to Tajut the regulars. He's like, well, that sounds stupid. Like giving wine away. We're just trying to get open. And I said, no, just people who like really come back a lot. We just start them with a little Tajut. And we were going through maybe a couple bottles every couple days. And then this lady came in like 4 times in a month. And so we were Tajuting her, right? Because we were doing what we were saying. It was like wow, this is a new regular. We're only open like 4 months. This lady's really into us. And we didn't know. We were new to town. The food writer was named Kyle Wagner. We thought it was a guy.
It's a pseudonym.
We thought it was a guy.
Yeah.
Well, now we're friends with Kyle Wagner. Yeah. It is definitely not a guy. It is an incredible lady. And she writes in our review. She wrote a very nice, very beautiful review that actually TK put on the pass at Per Se and French Laundry when it came out. But she mentioned, oh, and if you show up there, you get a half a glass of wine for free. And then all of a sudden, it was like so much. And Lachlan's like, you dummy, this is just too much. This is like 3 cases a week. I was like, oh, yeah. And I didn't go to MIT, so I like 3 cases a week. That's 150 cases a year. Yep, made a mistake here. And you couldn't take it away.
Right. No.
So we, Richard Betts, we were telling him this story, and because he was making Betts and Scholl, and he was making wine in France and Australia and California, he goes, I'll go over to Friuli with you. I'll show you how to do it, where you can go maybe buy a couple barrels of and you can have your own Tajut wine. I'm like, great. And Lachlan's like, yeah, now you go fix that, Bobby. And
what a punishment! You go to Italy and fix this
he
mess.
He came with me. He came with me, and that's how it started. It was like we wanted to bottle some wine for the Tajut mistake that I had created, and that's how it started. And so Richard Betts really helped us. And it's funny, it's the chef, not the sommelier, who runs Scarpetta. Like Lachlan really runs the company now. I help. I have my duties in the company, but he's really the president, CEO of Scarpetta Wine Company. It's so funny that it was like such a disastrous thing that we'd done. It's now that's like a really legitimate small business that we get to run.
That's really cool.
Thank you, Kyle Wagner.
So after Frasca, you said you have 4 restaurants. So what was the progression? What was the next restaurant? And what was the theory behind these different types of? They all have different themes and different hospitality kind of methods, correct?
Yeah. So we had been in our location for about 6 years, and the business next to us had gone out of business, and we were going to do a remodel, and we had an employee named Jordan Wallace, a.k.a. Bruiser, not because he's a bruiser, but he was really sensitive when he first came to work with us. So we used to joke with his mom that he bruised easily.
Yeah.
So Bruiser really wanted to do something other than Friulano food. He was really into Neapolitan style pizza. So we moved him to Naples, Italy. And he went and worked at La Notizia while we built out the space next to us. And that's where Pizzeria Locale is. And it's interesting. Bruiser still works for us, not in the Frasca hospitality group, but he works. We have 4 fast casual versions of PL, and he's the culinary director of those. So he's still with us. He's still bruising it, and so that's how that happened. And then we made a long-term employee, Peter Hoagland, a partner, and right when Scarpetta was kind of growing a lot, and someone had to have their eye on that all the time. That's a serious business. Lachlan was going to do that, and we brought Peter on as a business partner, which has been one of the greatest things ever. And at that time, we had been in contact with a gentleman named Mark Falcone. He's a developer in Denver, really, really visionary guy. And he took this piece of property at the base of the train station, and he was developing that area, and he developed a hotel. And we had been talking to him for years about trying to do something together. And he's like, you should put something here. And that's how Tavernetta came into place. And we didn't want to do another Frasca. We just didn't think Frasca has its own terroir, and it's not. We wanted to do something maybe a little bit. Frasca is quite fine dining, but also the terroir of Frasca is not me. It's Rose Voda, who's been the GM. She's been with us since day one. It's the team there that's Frasca. You can't kind of duplicate that. Yeah. So that's what we did that's how we did Tavernetta. And then Sunday Vinyl is our wine bar, and that's right outside the front door of Tavernetta.
Yeah, that one, because I love music and wine. Like, that's a cool concept. So, where did that idea come from? We're gonna have the dopest wine bar in America. I mean,
well, we wanted to have a wine bar. We wanted to have a wine bar, and I wanted music to be really a piece of it. My Danette and I normally only take Sunday nights off, and we listen to vinyl and drink some wine on Sunday nights. And we were like throwing all these like obscure Clash tune ideas on the wall, thinking of a name. And I was actually having lunch at the Modern a few years ago here during La Palais week, like it is right now. I met Danette there for lunch. Danette knows how to get me to go to an art museum. Is like choose an art museum that has a great restaurant wine list.
There you go. For
lunch. Very smart lady. So I meet her over there, and we're having some wine, and a guest came up and was like, "Hey, you're Bobby." I said, "Yeah, I'm Bobby." And he's like, "And you're D Stuckbaum." That's Danette's Instagram handle. And she's like, "I am." and he was like, "Hey, I just got to tell you, I loved your post a couple weeks ago. I never knew there was such a thing as Ethiopian like funk." I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Oh," and then he mentioned, "Oh, and then I saw that you did this other Ethiopian artist, Ayelu Mesfen, as a vinyl." I said, "Yeah, we both like Ayelu Mesfen." And he's like, "Oh, I loved it. I can't wait for your next Sunday night vinyl post." And then one of the employees there commented on that, and I was telling Peter Hoagland that when I got back, my business partner. He's like, "Okay, dummy, that's the name." Right? Awesome. He's like, "Dude, there it is, right there. Yeah. Like it's sitting in front of you."
Yeah. Now I have before I started Black Wine Guy Instagram, I have a personal Instagram, and for like 3 years I was just Cafe Vinyl. It was just I would listen every morning. I wake up, me and my wife, and we'd listen to vinyl and have coffee, and it was just an album cover with a cup of coffee. So
isn't that awesome?
It totally resonates with me, man.
And there's something about like the putting a piece of vinyl on, and like
it's like wine, right? Like it's like you pull it out, and then does it have the paper liner or is it the plastic liner? And you pull it out,
Yeah.
you blow it off, and then and then
So good.
and it pops, But same with the wine, like you cut the foil, right? And you line up the cork. There's these rituals that go with it that just make it so really freaking cool.
Yeah.
And just like wine, records are alive. Like they have all the ambient sound. You know what I mean? Like it's not wiped out on digitals. Like, there's this, there's a point in Green Onions, Booker T and G's, where like the drummers like scrapes the mic and they didn't cut it out. Like there's all that cool stuff in vinyl. So yeah, I can't wait to get out there. When I saw it, I was like, that was just dope. I'm like, this is my kind of spot.
There's a company called VMP, Vinyl Me Please. They reissue like music and repress it, and they're actually building what should be the most state-of-the-art vinyl pressing plant in North America that's been ever built. They're doing it in Denver, like right now. It's like under construction.
That's great. My wife gave me a subscription one Christmas, so I know Vinyl Me Please.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron Schaefer's great. The CEO, he's awesome.
Well,
big wine guy.
Colorado's a good place to do it too right now. Just so that's awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit because you have 4 restaurants. And when did Sunday Vinyl open up?
Strategically, right before COVID.
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened with COVID. Particularly in light of, so here you are, you're a restaurateur, you're an entrepreneur, you have a restaurant group, you have 4 restaurants, you just launched a new restaurant, and then COVID-19 comes down the pipe. What were your first thoughts?
Well, the first day, I just thought everything was gonna be okay because I thought I knew how insurance policies worked. Mm-hmm. My father was an insurance guy. I was like, oh, I've got my business interruption. I've paid for it for 15 years of premiums. I've never had a claim. And it was Monday the 16th. Yeah, Monday the 16th. We got closed by, that was when we had our closure from the government. I send on the, Alicia, who you've been in email before. Alicia was the one who put together our claim, send. Mm-hmm. And within 10 minutes, she's like, Bobby, I already got a denial back.
Damn.
I was like, wait, that can't happen for business interruption. They got to come up and look at the place.
Was that like the John Grisham movie where the first thing you deny right away?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
And so I called my father and I was like, hey, Dad, Larry, this just happened. He's like, ooh, that's not good. He goes, for a call center to get an email like that and deny, they've probably planned this.
Exactly. I'm saying they had the layers. They were like the moat was raised.
Exactly. And that happened to every single business in the country. I mean, and then I started calling people. I called Thomas. Check this out. Thomas not only had business interruption, same policy since 1994. He had gotten some idea a few years before to pay for a more expensive policy to get a rider
mm-hmm.
for disease or whatever.
Act of God or whatever they were calling
it. Yeah.
When I sang it.
He was paying for this bacterial whatever rider, and he still got denied. And then you were like, ooh. And then 2 days later, a bunch of us got on a call, and we're like, I just think we just realized, we didn't know what was going on, but we did realize that we have a great industry and it was in a really fragile situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we soon realized we did not have a group to advocate for independent restaurants. There's a big difference. Yes, there's the National Restaurant Association. They do their thing, but they can't be laser focused on independence if you're really working for franchises and chains. It's okay. It's you can't be everything to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't someone for the 500,000 independent restaurants. And that's kind of how the IRC started. And there was a few wins along the way, some great wins, and we really realized that this industry was so important. But, yesterday was kind of a depressing day. we got the restaurant revitalization fund put in a year ago. Senator Schumer put it in at a truncated version, $28.6 billion. We had asked for $100 billion, and it was gone within 24 hours. And there's 177,000 restaurants that have been sitting in the queue. I have 2 of them that were in that queue since May. And we found out yesterday, not just the people in the IRC, the Independent Restaurant Coalition, but all 177,000 restaurants found out that we did not get put in the omnibus package. And so that's where we are today.
So, I mean, it's been a long road. First of all, what you said, was it $28.4 billion or something? Like, people don't realize, like, money goes so fast.
So fast.
It's crazy. But you must have learned a lot about how our government works during this process, right? So
I did.
Because actually, there's a movie out now on Somm TV called Saving Restaurants.
Yes.
That came out a couple weeks ago. What was this like for you? I mean, at first, I think you have like this servant's heart, right? So, of course, you're worried about your restaurants, but what had you get in action, really to build the coalition? Because I know you're one of the co-founders. What was, as you said, you started making phone calls, but what was a driving force behind that?
Well, I know enough about our industry, and I love our industry, and there is not an industry like this. We have more single mothers raising children in our industry than any other industry. If you are new to this country and you don't speak the language, we're here for you. If you make a mistake when you're 19 years old and have a felony conviction, everyone deserves a chance to rehabilitate themselves if they want to. The problem is, if you want to go drive for a linen company or a wine distributor, you can't get a job as a felon for a lot of companies. The restaurant industry is there for you if you want to do that. And I've been in the industry long enough to know, whoa, look, our industry is not perfect. There's a lot of things that need to be changed, and there's a lot of things that need to work on, but it's a fact of life. We can be there for so many people. And that's what worried me the most. And that's what freaked me out so much.
Yeah. For yourself, as someone who, what do you call it? Learning disability, whatever it's called.
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. You were able to find a home.
Yes. I don't know what would have happened to me without the restaurant business. And look, not everyone has to be in ownership. I would have been just great and happy working for TK the whole time too. There's a lot of great positions and a lot of great things, and there's I just was really worried about our industry.
Yeah. So what was let's talk about the bill passing process that most Americans don't understand. Why is restaurant aid tied to someone's, I'm making this up, but it's, for example, fracking bill?
Oh, so I think there's 8,000 bills presented a year, and 250, I don't have the exact number, become law. Currently, doesn't matter. I'll be honest, I'm a Democrat. There's brilliant people that are Democrats, and there's some people not so brilliant. There's Republicans. That's not what I am. There's some smart people. There's some not so smart people. But the problem is, right today, no one's getting along. It's a real serious issue, and they've got to fix it. They've got to learn to work for their constituents, not their party. That should be not allowed. So, if you look how few standalone bills get passed, it's not going to happen. Because with the filibuster, there's no way you're going to get all the Republicans and 10 Dems, or all the Dems and 10 Republicans to get a standalone bill. they're more and more becoming extinct animals. There isn't that many standalone bills. And both sides of the aisle were trying everything to attach to the omnibus and squeeze something else out. And that's where you get into really dicey situations for all of the United States of America, is when you have an industry. Well, so the independent restaurants are we're like 11 or 12 times the size of the airline industry.
They always get a shit ton of money.
They got a lot. And we're just an industry that
I mean, how many people work on a plane? You got the pilot.
Yeah.
You got like maybe 10 people on a
I
plane.
think it was $77,000 per employee they got. That's a lot. So they
that's like double what the average American makes.
Yeah, and they got that per employee.
Wow. It's a corporation.
Yeah. Yeah, and
they didn't kick it down to their employees. I'm certain of that.
And so you have this situation where you don't get standalone bills passed, and so you're trying to attach it. And now that it's, they say that saying, you learn how the sausage is made. Man, I did not know, and now I know, and it really freaks me out.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we were kids growing up. It's so true. Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. I'm alone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Like they were telling us back in the 70s, bills don't go anywhere. They just sit on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. And you know what's so crazy? There's a couple people that I was on Zoom calls with over and over that are famous senators on both sides of the aisle, famous Congress people on both sides of the aisle, that they need to rewatch that cartoon.
Yeah.
Because they don't even understand. They're an elected official. They should learn how what they're doing does to people.
Yeah, I think it's scary how far removed, and we grew up in a time when the system's not perfect, but there were moderates. The goal was there was moderates. You had a Joe Lieberman who was a right-leaning Democrat, and you had a John McCain who was like a left-leaning Republican, and they would go back and help do the deals. But now nobody's doing that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Everybody's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah,
you don't got the votes, and that's it.
I think our bill did not get put in. I really believe this, and if he's listening, he can, or someone wants to let him hear this. I think Mitch McConnell and the Republicans didn't want to give Chuck Schumer and President Biden a win after, and they would rather hurt, 11 million jobs, and that's wrong.
That is wrong. I mean, I am not registered anything, but I do know McConnell he's called the Grim Reaper of bills. He shuts shit down. He's notorious for it.
Yeah.
He shut down Supreme Court fucking nomination hearings, which is, I went to law school and I'm not even that good at assuming, but which to me is unconscionable. The system's not perfect, but could we at least the system work itself out instead of co-opting it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're an elected official
right.
for your constituents, not for your base.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing, and it's really sad because I know a lot of those famous senators. They like to eat out at fine restaurants and be waited on and served.
Oh, they love it.
But they're let them eat Chipotle, I guess is what they're.
Yeah, I think they think of us as just. I don't know what they think. I've talked to over 100 congressmen and senators over the last 2 years. I have no idea what they think of us, but it's something.
I mean, but you've been all over the news on this thing, and I watched the movie on Somm TV, and you're Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. How'd you find the stamina to do that, man?
I mean, MJ, it's been a wild journey. My poor wife, she talks about it we live in a smaller house, and I don't have an office, so it's at that kitchen table, which you see in the movie a lot. And Danette said it was contact high but the reverse, contact negativity. Because
Contact
she would hear these calls, and they would be like, she like I'd get done with the call between it, and she'd be like, "Whoa." So it was just a grind. We were really the people, not just me, everyone in that group on the IRC who have worked so hard. Erica, everyone, Carolyn Stein, Tom Colicchio, everybody. It was a grind, and we were kind of like building an airplane while it was flying. None of us knew what we were doing. I mean, Tom had done some advocacy work, but I had never called a congressman or a senator, or I had no idea. So, and most of us didn't.
Yeah.
And so it was really just you were trying to figure it out as you went.
We naively believe that people get elected and they're going to take care of us in this country.
Yeah.
And
I do want to give a shout out. Senator Hickenlooper got voted in 2020. He hadn't even been sworn into office, and he reached out and wanted to hear about the bill backwards and forwards, which I thought was like, I was like, there's someone, he doesn't even have a horse in the race yet. He's not even allowed to vote on this, and he's trying to get himself ready for in a month. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So, like you said, yesterday was a sad day. What's next for the Independent Restaurant Coalition?
You know, I think we need to be here. We need to have a seat at the table for the independents out there. You know, we've only had one singular focus, and it was the RRF, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We're going to see what's next, what we need to work on. But you don't want to dismantle something, because we do know our industry needs this so much. And to do that, we got to be there working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you can't dismantle it. Don't listen to me. But like, I mean, because all these other industries have lobbyists, right? So the pressure needs to still be exerted.
100%.
And you know, it's one of those things where, you know, let's talk about individual measures. Like, what did you do to keep some of your people working during the pandemic? So you're doing all this stuff to help the industry as a whole, but then you have to run your restaurant group.
Yeah. So what we did was everything got closed in Colorado. Peter, Lachlan, and I sat down, and we took our savings and we wrote everyone an insurance check through July, because we didn't know what was going on. This was, and so we had this graph to the day of when we were going to run out of money.
Your burn rate, yeah.
We had our burn rate, and it was like, I think we had a burn rate until like June 20th, that if we could be open by June 20th, but we had committed this whole thing. So there was a robust program for staff on unemployment and things like that, especially if we could get them all their insurance. So even if someone wasn't on insurance, they could get on insurance. We were going to pay it, and they had their insurance paid full coverage for 4 months. Boom. So no one, that was at the start. And then one of our guests called me, Jason Mendelson, and he's like, dude, you got to do I want you to like engage in start thinking of how you can do something to raise money for your staff, but not just your typical GoFundMe, something where you're doing something for the guests, for your employees. And so Carlin, who's our wine director, Carlin and I and Chef Eduardo and Peter and Aaron Palmer and Alicia and Jody, kind of like the core executive team, hatched this idea called Frasca at Home when we were closed. And it was Carlin would find a winemaker. We would interview him via Zoom, edit it. And that's right when Colorado had said you could sell wine to go. So we would do on Sundays, and it was called Frasca at Home. Chef Eduardo, we would film him, and he would walk everyone through how to cook their dinner. Then all of the executive team would package up in different things, whatever that week's theme was. So like Eduardo's wife, Kelly, is from Korea. So we did like a Korean barbecue night. We did a Spanish paella night because he's originally from Spain. We did we did different things each night. And our guests were so incredible. There were some guests that did every one of these every Sunday. And so they would come, we would put it in their car, they would go home. It was pretty much all done. They just had to like kind of chef it up a little bit, watching Eduardo, watching Carlin and I with the winemaker. And that's what we did for the time we were closed. And we all learned a lot. It was really stressful. Every restaurant had a different thing of what they did, but that's what we did. And yeah, let's not have to ever go back to that.
And then kind of some of the restrictions were lifted, and then you, I think you're one of the people to start doing like yurts, little teepees.
Yeah.
What was that like? I just saw the scene where like you guys like it's like IKEA, like oh shit.
Oh my God.
What was that like?
Dude, and like the team just freaking going for it. And the team like Rose Voda and the Frasca team walking around like we had these fondue pots we were doing in the middle of snowstorms, like running out to the yurts. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been crazy.
Yeah. So in 2019, Frasca won the James Beard Award for Outstanding Service. I read that you made the suggestion that the James Beard Foundation change the name of the award to the James Beard Award for Outstanding Hospitality, which they apparently adopted.
Yeah.
Okay. Please explain the distinction in your mind between service and hospitality.
Yeah. Service is like, you could go to the gas station. You can go to Discount Tire, get your tires changed. That's a great service. And actually, they're really nice at that, at Discount Tire.
Maybe in your town.
but like that's a service. You do something to someone. Hospitality is how you make someone feel. And I always worried about those service awards. They're too focused on. It's a whole team. It can't just be the maitre d' and the somm and the head waiter. It's got to be everybody. Hospitality has to be like how you treat the guy who delivers the fish when he comes in the back door, those things. And chefs can be part of the hospitality program too. I remember when we won that award, Daniel Boulud was the guy who called the award. Like he was the one who was the presenter of that specific award. And that's where I was walking up there seeing Danielle about to give it to us. And that's where I came up with that idea because Chef Danielle's a chef, but he really cares about people. So we all can be. So that was my thought behind that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, you took a hit with the IRC and the Restaurant Revitalization Act, but like, how are you feeling about the future 2022 for Frasca Food and Wine? How are you feeling these days?
Well, I think I'm not as positive. I'm pretty positive. I'm not like Larry, my dad, the lizard, who's like so positive. It's just nuts. But
promoted to public school, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, just so good.
It's brilliant.
Oh my, there's. I mean, it's a whole list of brilliance all the time for that guy. But he, I'm very positive too, and I think this industry. I think more and more people realized how great our industry is, like guests. Now what we need to do is journalists need to stop. Like journalists really like saying how negative the guests are. That's like the buzz topic right now.
Yeah, that was a lot during the pandemic. It's like people are being rude.
Yeah,
and they don't want to wait for their to-go orders. They're not tipping. Yeah, I remember all that stuff.
I think that was just lazy journalism. Yeah. Because I read because I can't be in all 4 restaurants. Right. I'm in one every night, but I read the log every night of all of them. We have not had an uptick of that. People are generally great. What I do hope happens, and this is what I really hope happens, is more people come back to our industry. And I don't have the answer how to get these people back, but I want people to come back because this is the perfect time to get back into our industry because there's going to be so much growth. And, if you're a company that promotes from within, people are going to be leapfrogging things that used to take years, and they'll be able to really cut their teeth and do different things.
Yeah.
And look, I hear these things all the time about, I hear from, I have 200 employees. I listen to them and they talk to me. And we're a company where we provide a 4% matching 401k we have done that for 16 years. We've had an insurance program and PTO and things like that. Those packages are there. We're not a unicorn. But what young restaurant people, I want them to do is, we're not the only ones doing that. Go find restaurants to do that. Maybe you go work at a hotel restaurant. It might not be as sexy and might not look as cool on your Instagram account, but if you really go to these places that treat you professionally, and then other restaurants will have to adopt those policies. If people only went to work at the places that provided those things, then that is the way to get everyone to do that. But the employees have to make that really forefront of their brain to do that. And that can be their revolution. Go work at these places that provide that, and then you will get other places to do it.
I love it. I love that. So you said early on in our conversation, like there wasn't like the heavens parted and you was like, oh, I'm going to be in this industry. But I will ask this question. You're in Friuli. You had your little tokai. But was there a bottle of wine there where you were just like, oh, now this is wine for me?
I've had many because I love wine so much, and different experiences are different. But I have a lot of things that, and they're all different types. Like, of course, you're going to hear like Dinette and I in Piedmont with Roberto Quinterno, and lucky enough to drink 85 Monfortino with him. Yeah, really special freaking moment. Yeah, like I might start crying thinking about it right now. Very good vacation day for D-Bomb and I. But also there's like moments that are just, I think about, I went, my mom and dad met me in France in the late 90s. And just sitting in Avignon after wine tasting in the Southern Rhone, and just watching my parents be really happy and things like that. Like, those are great moments too.
Yeah.
I don't think my dad needed to drink the whole magnum of 99 Domaine de Pigalle by himself, but it worked.
Wow. Larry, my kind of guy.
Yeah. He's going to listen to this.
Pop.
Yeah. High alcohol.
Mag too, dude, man, he went in for it. I mean, that's like at least 15.
Yeah,
he went in.
Yeah, he did.
2 bottles. I'll take 2.
Yeah. I think he was the one who...
he was feeling it.
Oh, yeah. I think he calls these things half magnums.
That's awesome. That's freaking awesome, man. Oh, my God. Well, Bobby, again, what an honor. Thank you for coming in. I know you're in town for La Paulie, and we've been talking about this for a minute, and I am coming out Sunday Vinyl Denver. We're gonna do a BWG night. We're gonna do a playlist.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome. Tell people how they can find you, how they can be a part of what you're doing, Independent Restaurant Coalition, Frasca Food and Wine Group. Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, you can find. Let's talk about the Independent Restaurant Coalition first, because there's so many people that need to know about that. That's www.saverestaurants.com. My organization is the Frasca Hospitality Group, which is Frasca Food and Wine in Boulder, Pizzeria Locale, Tavernetta in Denver, and Sunday Vinyl. You can find those, and I can't wait to everyone listening come in and I get to bust your table.
I love that. So everybody, this is your boy MJ. Another just magical episode of the podcast. I want to thank you again for coming in. Make sure you guys check out the show notes. We'll have all the information where you can find out about the Independent Restaurant Coalition and the Frasca Food and Wine Group, but definitely saverestaurants.com. If you haven't already, check out the documentary on Somm TV. Until the next time, this is to all the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and the wine drinkers. It's your boy MJ. Peace.